Welcome to Hyderabad, to the International Advanced Research Center for Powder Metallurgy and New Materials, a unique institution under a Department of Science and Technology in Hyderabad. And we are going to talk to its director, G. Padmanabham, who has had more than 4 decades of very interesting research career, from developing components for guided missile and today to investigating on surface sciences. We are going to have lots of discussions, very interesting issues, but before that, let's take a quick look at his brief profile and we'll carry on with the conversation.
An excellent materials engineer, Dr. G. Padmanabham has made a name for himself as an effective administrator. Presently, he heads the ARCI Institute in Hyderabad. Dr. Padmanabham obtained his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Andhra University and master's degree in metallurgy from NIT Warangal. After that, he did his PhD in welding technology from IIT Delhi. His professional career started in 1987 as a design and development engineer at Bharat Dynamics Limited in Hyderabad, where he was involved in indigenization of a strategic project which was under license production. He joined ARCI Hyderabad in 2005 and made outstanding research contribution in the fields of materials joining, laser processing of materials, and technology transfer and commercialization. Under his leadership, the Center for Laser Processing of Materials not only developed as a nationally unique facility, but also provided expert help to several other organizations in setting up of laser processing facilities. He also provided overall leadership to ceramic processing, salt gel nanocomposite coatings, and technology transfer and commercialization activities of ARCI. Dr. G. Padmanabham has more than 80 research publications and 8 patents to his credit. Apart from this, he is a recipient of Materials Research Society of India Medal and German Academic Exchange Fellowship.
So thank you for being with us. It's been a wonderful opportunity. It's a really wonderful institute. We can see that it's vibrant, advanced, really, in the sense that people are working on cutting edge technology. Let me start with this question. You have had more than 4 decades of research work. If I ask you, was there a moment in your 4 decades when you felt eureka? Really I found something very interesting. What would you put that as?
It was one of the occasions when we tried to adapt an aerospace solution to a more mundane application which affects everybody's life here, improving the life of a boiler component which is used to produce steam in a thermal power plant. In fact, a very new technology of using lasers for clad coating on the components could be successfully applied, and the component could improve because of the application of our knowledge in terms of the laser material interactions, which we fundamentally studied, could be applied to develop such coatings.
Okay.
So it's a combination of science and knowledge borrowed from some other application, together working for a good solution.
Another thing that I found in your background is, interestingly, it lists welding as your specialization. It seems a bit intriguing. You walk on any street, almost in any city, almost within 2 streets, you are going to suddenly find some welding shop. Welding is so ubiquitous. So what is there to do research or study? It's a bit mystery. Can you clarify to us?
Yeah, I would look at this field of welding in a much broader sense. We call it the materials joining.
Materials joining.
Materials joining. Welding is typically applied to metals, where you fuse the metal and make the joint. But today with developments of various materials like ceramics, polymers, composites, the welding field itself has to be broadened into the field of materials joining, and it goes beyond welding to processes like brazing, soldering, adhesive bonding, and you name it. There are several ways of joining materials. Now coming back to your earlier point, you are right in saying that people feel what is so great in welding that you have to do research on it. If you take some simple examples like take a steel rod or a sheet that comes out of a steel plant, it undergoes certain processing, casting, rolling or forging or any such process, because of which it has certain strength and microstructural characteristic. Now when you do welding of the same sheet, you are remelting and solidifying it again and making the joint. In a way, you are creating an inhomogeneity
At that junction.
at that junction where you have welded. Now in the process of fusing and solidifying, you also have the effects of the atmosphere around. The atmospheric gases can get into it, and it cools very fast and results in stresses, so cracks can happen. So the defects formation, the metallurgical inhomogeneity that you create by fusing and solidifying can affect the overall performance of the material. So we define it in the form of a property called the joint efficiency, right? And this inhomogeneity is different for different materials. For example, when you weld stainless steels, the areas near the weld lose corrosion resistance.
So that becomes a place where corrosion can easily occur.
When you weld structural steels, you end up with a phenomenon called cold cracking. Even like you mentioned about the way a roadside welding is done, you see a truck going in front of you and a lot of welding done in a damaged area, and you will find most of the time the failure is just in the adjacent region of the welding place, because they haven't applied the welding science there and welded the way they knew it.
Very interesting. Now moving to another thing. I mean, another area that you have been working is using laser to work on the surfaces. So what exactly that means? I mean, laser we all know is used, for example, in medical application or maybe to cut a metal. These are something that you would have heard of. So how do you ensure making a surface out of a laser?
Lasers in the field of manufacturing, or laser as a manufacturing tool, basically uses the physical phenomena that occur when a laser beam is made to interact with a material. When it falls on a material, depending on the intensity of the beam and the interaction time with the material, either it heats up the material or melts the material or vaporizes the material. There are several other physical phenomena that can occur when you can initiate a combustion process. You can do certain metallurgical transformations on the surface by the laser energy. So there are several possibilities. So when you specifically talk of the coating, what we do is we feed the coating material in the form of a powder into the laser beam focus. It melts the material and deposits on the surface, and then you can scan across the surface and cover it with the coating material. There are several other processes for coating technologies, but the advantage of using lasers is it is a very precise heat source. You can in a localized manner you can deposit material and get the property that you are looking for.
You are looking for at that location, not in other places. That's an interesting
precise
thing.
and low heat input.
That's
So
a very interesting part. Maybe we need to take a very short break. We'll come back. We'll continue this discussion. Keep watching Eureka. We are going to have a lot more interesting points about this institute, work going on here. By the way, do you know sometimes when you walk into some cloth shop across your city, maybe you will find some shirt or a trouser being sold as stain free. Possibly the technology came from this institute. We are going to discuss all this after the break. Keep watching Eureka. Welcome back, and we are having a really interesting conversation with Dr. G. Padmanabham, the Director of International Advanced Research Center for Powder Metallurgy and New Materials in Hyderabad, a constituent unit of Department of Science and Technology. And very interestingly, this institute was originally named as Indo-Soviet Advanced Research Center, and it became international. And the director who is heading this institute today has a hand in formation and the progress of this institute, and we are going to ask about him. So how did this institute, which was set up as Indo-Soviet Center, became international? What is the story behind it?
This was originally conceptualized to work in the field of powder metallurgy, taking the strengths of the erstwhile Soviet Union to adapt certain technologies which are already available for Indian industry and commercially transfer them. Unfortunately, the Soviet Union disintegrated in the early 90s, and there were about 6 Soviet republics which were active partners in this project of setting up ERCI, like the Russia, Ukraine, Moldavia, and couple of other republics, with whom we were already interacting on developing certain technologies. That is the reason we had to change Indo-Soviet to International Advanced Research Center.
Very, very interesting point. I mean, very interesting background history. Now, it's in existence for more than about 2 decades now, little more than 2 decades.
Yeah.
Suppose if I ask you in these 2 decades, name 5 major achievements of this institute, what would you list them as?
Very early in the operational stage of ERCI itself, we have been able to transfer to industry a technology called the detonation spray coating technology,
Okay.
which has been used in the aerospace industry, and before that India was getting it done elsewhere in the world. And this technology is not only just doing the coating development, but the coating equipment development as well. And this was in partnership with Ukraine, one of the Soviet countries. And till today the technology is evolving. We have come up recently in our technology exhibition that we conducted in February with Mark II, with higher productivity and all. The second major technology I would mention is, even though it is more recent, we have been able to transfer. It is related to these strategic sectors. They are ceramic infrared transparent domes
Okay.
used in the seeker of a missile system. That has been transferred to a public sector company. They are now productionizing these components, these products, and in fact we are receiving inquiries from other countries also for supply of these components. Then in the field of nanomaterials, we are not only synthesizing different metals, oxides and other materials in a kilogram quantity scale, but also have taken a few applications to the market. For example, even you were mentioning about it. You go in the market and see the products like Sunwash, antibacterial textiles. That is based on ERCI technology, which has been transferred to a Bangalore-based company, which sells the product in the form of N9. If you come across a product, a shirt or a pant with the N9 symbol on it,
N9.
N9 symbol on it, That is ARCS technology.
Okay. And it's stain free.
It's a stain free. And the other technology which I mentioned to you about the power plant components is also under transfer now.
Okay, let me shift to another area. I mean, this is the past, but with changing times, we need to also change, we have to also progress. Some of the major challenges that we are having today is how do we harness solar power, for example. So, do you have any area of action in that direction? What is your future plan, if I ask so?
Solar energy, we have two routes of harnessing the solar power. One is the photovoltaic route and the other is the solar thermal route, using the heat directly for either producing steam and energy or using it for cooling purposes or refrigeration purposes. On the photovoltaic side, you have the solar cells which convert into electricity. Now, we are addressing several aspects of these both the technologies in terms of improving their efficiency. When it comes to solar PV technology, even the silicon based solar cells, when they are in the outside atmosphere, in India they are prone to accumulate a lot of dust, and if dust is there, the efficiency comes down.
Drastically.
So we have developed in our lab hydrophobic coating on the surface without losing any of its transparency, so that it is easily cleanable.
So, it's like that N9 shirt, somewhat a similar technology,
Similar
but for
technology,
use for a different,
but for a different functionality.
very interesting.
But the similar coating with a different functionality.
This is not a problem, for example, in Europe so much.
Yes.
But whereas it's our problem.
Yes.
Yeah. So we need to find a solution from our context.
So the
That's
next
what
development is the flexible solar cells.
Okay.
If you can make solar cells in the form of thin films, you can have even a curved surface doing the harnessing the solar energy. So we are working on thin film solar cells. And coming to the solar thermal route, again we are using our capabilities in coating technology to make the absorber tubes, solar absorber tubes, more efficient and less emissive.
So it can make more heat, but whereas when the heat is coming, I mean, it doesn't radiate and
Radiate
then lose
it
it.
too. Yes.
Okay, that's another area. That you have.
And if you look at the absorber tube assemblies, they are actually a metal tube with a glass casing on it. Again, and then an aluminum reflector concentrating the sun onto those tubes. So even those concentrators need to be dust free, and these glass tubes need to be dust free and transmitting more light into the absorber. So we are working on all these functionalities. Already a couple of technologies are being field tested.
That's an interesting point. Maybe we need to take a very short break here. Don't go away. Keep watching Eureka. We are going to have lots of discussion after this break. Keep watching Eureka. Welcome back to Eureka, and we are having a wonderful conversation with Dr. G. Padmanabhan, who is the Director of International Advanced Research Center for Powder Metallurgy and New Materials in Hyderabad, a constant unit of Department of Science and Technology. I want to ask you one thing. I mean, about 4-5 decades ago, when you would have been a student and then would have wanted to move towards your higher education, you know, this was a time when people would have thought science is not such a great area, right? Research is not such a great idea. People would have thought about the, standard path, going to a government job, things of that kind. What made you take up science? I mean, what motivated you to take up science?
Yeah, there are few occasions in my early life which prompted or motivated me to go towards science. The first episode, what I can remember is when I was gifted the first set of Lego building blocks by one of my uncles. You have the blocks with which you can make different shapes, different articles, and it is left to your imagination of what all you can make with it. And that somehow got followed by another set of different type of blocks like the mechanics. And I used to be very fond of these set of toys, which made me always think in this direction that I should build something,
Yeah, you should actually engineer things.
engineer things and build things in the future. And that was the motivation to look at engineering as a career. But when I finished my engineering and took up a profession as an engineer with one of the public sector companies, BDL, I started as a shop floor engineer, working with a CNC machine, producing certain components based on the drawings that used to come from our design department. But doing repetitive jobs was not so interesting, and I used to interact with the designers and ask them about what is the criteria used in the design, why you chose this material, and how we can modify it and how we can innovate further on it. Then the bosses, my bosses, felt that this guy has more inquisitive nature than the others, and they posted me in a division where we had to look at 950 component drawings and do an analysis of how we can indigenize them and make them in India. And the journey started like this, which exposed me to a range of engineering materials that are used in making one system, and that became my fascination of knowing more about materials and their application in different contexts. Even today, if you see the innovations that are happening in any engineering sector, 70% of the contribution comes from materials innovation. And that is how it happened. And that interest of mine took a different shape when the government of India at that time in early 90s launched the technology missions New Materials. And I was kind of offered a job in the technology missions in the Department of Science and Technology.
Very interesting story of how you came into research and also to this institute, your journey through various paths. One can certainly say that any guided missile that exists today in India, your hand is there, right?
Not really so. One missile system which was under license production, and choice of materials for a large number of components. But of course, once you have developed certain knowledge of one system, it gets translated for application into other systems. So I can say that some initial knowledge generation of how we can use indigenous materials and indigenously make components which can go into such systems is there.
See, India is today poised to make its next leap, and two major challenges would be from technology side is energy and environment. So, how is this Advanced Research Center planning to address this issue and come to the nation building exercise?
So, in this context, based on the capabilities that we have already developed in our lab in materials development as well as coating technologies, and the translational research in terms of devices and engineering them at least on a prototype scale, ERC has been chosen as a lab where the technical research center on alternative energy materials and systems could be established. So, this center is about 15 months old now. We have set up activities related to materials and device development for solar energy, which is environmental friendly, which I mentioned about what are the specific things that we are doing. Then the next is one major mission is towards electric mobility.
Electric mobility.
Electric mobility, which also is environmental friendly. And for that, the major components you require is the energy storage batteries and the supercapacitors, which are both electrochemical devices which can drive the power the electric vehicles, starting from a bike to a bus. A variety of these applications we are having in our mind, and we have already initiated work in that direction.
Okay, if one can ask, what is the crucial, let's say, technological challenge in this electrical mobility that you are tackling? What would you present that as? There may be many, but what would be you present it as a major challenge?
I think developing cost-effective batteries, by making batteries cheaper, I think would be a very
So, what does
crucial
it
challenge.
entail?
It will entail developing materials which are cheaper, easily available. Today, a lot of dependence on lithium-ion batteries. Lithium is not so freely available. Maybe we should look for alternate, cheaper battery materials and have all the fabrication technologies, make them more safe. So, I see a great challenge and requirement to make cost-effective batteries.
Very, very important point. Quite a large number of our viewers are students, particularly pursuing their engineering courses. And you have come from an engineering background, and then you are one of the major, you are heading one of the major research center in this country. What would be your, let's say, take-home message to our young people?
First of all, they should be able to answer the question, what an engineer is supposed to do. I go to several institutes and I put this question. I don't get a clear answer from the young engineers. Then I have to tell them the answer. Engineer's role is to make this world a better place to live.
Yeah, engineer's role is to make this world better place to live.
And how do you do it? So you should know the world, you should have the knowledge, you should combine it, innovate.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, engineer's role is to make this world better for our living, improve our standards, improve human development index. That's a key message that we are getting from this dialogue, this conversation. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being with us in the show. It was a wonderful discussion, talking about you, talking about this institute, your future plans. We are actually very excited. Thank you for watching this program. Keep watching Eureka. We'll come up with another conversation, another week, same time. Keep watching Eureka.